Hello everybody, Karaoke here. Yesterday, ArenaNet announced guild halls at E3, which I think we were all very excited about, and they dropped a little bit of a bomb on us in the form of also announcing Guild Wars 2 Heart of Thorns Prepurchase. This was something that I think we'd talked about as a guild, thinking that it might come, and I had sort of suggested it, and then they did it. And so this was, I think for most of us, incredibly exciting. And then a lot of people immediately ran to the page to buy it and found out that the expansion was $50, that it included the core Guild Wars 2 game. So if you haven't played the game, you get Guild Wars 2 along with Heart of Thorns for the same price that everybody else gets Heart of Thorns, and that it would not have a character slot unless if you bought one separately. So $60 if you want the extra character slot for your Revenant. Or you move up to the $75 or $100 package if you want to get the character slot that way. This left a lot of people very, very upset. And if you were to check out Reddit, you will now see that the top post of all time on the Guild Wars 2 subreddit is "Don't pre-purchase Heart of Thorns." The most upvoted post in the history of the subreddit is "Don't pre-purchase Heart of Thorns." The second one is Mike O'Brien thanking Reddit for cupcakes, and the first was the post about being the subreddit of the day. So guys, this is, to me, a little bit crazy. I think this is not necessarily what I would have expected, and there's a lot of very angry people out there. So with me today for MEGAtalks is Charim. Charim, have you been on MEGAtalks before? I forget.
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome. And we also have with us Razz, who I'm pretty sure has...
I have been in the last one we did, which was a while ago.
Yeah, it's been and for people who watch the channel, I've been traveling for work. That's also why the recording is at 720p and might have terrible audio. I apologize, I'm not home. And joining us for the first time is Kura.
Hello.
So, guys, I had really mixed feelings when we saw the stuff about guild halls. Now, I'm going to be upfront about this. I had participated in the guild halls CDI way back when, and I had suggested a lot of things that I thought would be cool, but overall, I hadn't felt like guild halls were something that I cared about as a player, which is interesting because I'm a guild leader, right? So guild halls should appeal to me in some way, and my concern always was that these guild halls would be just a place for people to idle. And, I feel like that kind of... nothing I saw in the announcement made me think that differently of them. And I really was excited to talk about guild halls. But guess what? Now we have to talk about this whole pre-purchase mess instead.
$50!
$50! Oh my god.
$50!
So, none of the discussion right now is about guild halls. It's all about the pricing and the terms of the pre-purchase. And so I want to start off with a quick question, just about guild halls, because I feel like nobody's talking about it, and we should. Are you excited for guild halls, Charim?
So the method of unlocking guild halls and the breadth of what is inside of a guild hall was initially exciting to me. But when they got around to actually discussing what the content inside of it will be, it was nothing groundbreaking, and I felt like it would get really boring really quickly once you'd unlocked it.
You don't think that the dollhouse concept of being able to place items in different locations will be endlessly entertaining?
Well, it might be, but probably not for the reasons they anticipated. I hope it would be.
Kura, you're a PvPer. Do guild halls appeal to you at all?
To me, they're basically going to be a place to AFK, and I want to make it look pretty. So I'll probably spend a lot of time making it look beautiful while I'm waiting for PvP queues.
Yeah. He'll have his own guild hall for just him. That's what's gonna happen.
I'll just
here.
be sitting in there, as long as they let us actually chill anywhere else other than Heart of the Mist, which I'm really hoping they do. But that's a whole nother topic. But no, I think they're going to be really good. Honestly, I guess I just didn't expect too much from them, but I don't know. I think they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, Razz?
So I'm gonna be the other whole end of this. I think they're going to be awesome. For me, seeing all the stuff that they've placed inside, and I think a few other people have said this, a lot of these things they're putting into the guild halls and in general Heart of Thorns is set up for future updates, patches, expansions, things that are going to come in a number of years from now or a number of months from now when Heart of Thorns is released. And I think that's all preparation for that stuff. It might seem small, which to me it isn't really that small. It's actually a lot of stuff put into this one concept. If we remember Guild Halls, and yes, Guild Wars was 5 years ago, and it was old technology and an old MMO, but what we had back then was just a place to AFK. The merchants there weren't anything fancy, and all we really did was guild versus guild, which we can still do in this guild hall. We can have a whole battle arena for our own, which we can ourselves and our guild fight each other or invite other guilds to participate in made up tournaments or things like that. There's a whole slew of things which I already have ideas for this arena. It'd be really fun. And there's a lot of customization. I mean, what you said, like an endless things to do inside the arena, like a dollhouse effect where we can just place things all over the place. Like they even mentioned, and I think I might have to disagree with Karam. I think they intended that to be the way, because they even mentioned in an interview that the vine walls, like you can make a maze or whatever, or you can set up like a maze of dragon heads and things like that. Like there's all sorts of things you can do with the placeable objects. And so I think they intended this to be a fun place for guilds to like just fool around inside and have a menagerie of different like activities they could come up with. So
I think they're trying to introduce more sandbox features, which I support, but I do worry that these sandbox features are all going to be locked by gems. Is that I mean, we've already seen, okay, hey, this item you get if you pre-purchase. These other items you get if you buy this particular edition. And it really does seem like the stuff that you put in your guild hall, they've talked about buildings and decorations, right? Buildings are the fixed things that you create over time and they're set. And then there's decorations, which players can contribute and you put wherever. Does it feel like just another way to get people to spend money on the gem store on decorations?
Absolutely.
I think half and half. I think half of it will be unlocking them, because they did say a lot of stuff is going to be unlocked in the guild hall. And I'm sure there'll be special things they'll put out in the gem store that we will want to, like, oh, there's this special cool thing you can decorate your guild with. You can place it everywhere. And it does this all cool animations or special effects or whatever. I'm sure there'll be things like that. But I'm pretty sure that the initial stuff we'll have will be unlockable.
I mean, if they give us a unicorn statue that you can put in your guild hall, yeah, I'm going to plop down 400 gems on that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it feels like they're building all these systems, and they're building them with monetization in mind. So last night when we saw this all, we were talking a little bit about the glider skin that you get with the deluxe and ultimate editions. And that's going to be the sort of thing that we've already had outfits and mail carriers, and now we're going to have guild hall decorations and glider skins and who knows what else as just more things that they release that are, themed and interesting, I suppose. But you just get more of your monthly or bi-monthly gem store releases where they're trying to get you to cough up a little bit of extra money. And I'm okay with ArenaNet making money. Like, I want them to make money, but I want them to make money so that they can give us content, not so that we can get little trinkets for our guild halls, And I think that really, to me, transitions us into the main thing that I want to talk about. Sorry, guild halls, you get no love. But the pre-purchase stuff. So I was expecting a $50 price tag. And so when I saw $50, that's what I was expecting. Now I was expecting $50 with a character slot. So I guess it's technically $10 more than I was expecting. Were you guys surprised by the price of the expansion, or maybe the non-inclusion of a character slot?
I wouldn't say surprised, but I was disappointed that it was.
I wasn't expecting a character slot. I at first, a long while ago, back in the days of yore, I was expecting a whole bunch of things from the pre-purchase. But the more it went on through the months, I was like, I think I initially I predicted a much higher price tag on the expansion. I thought it was gonna be $60. So it was actually a surprise to me to see $50 being thrown down with the core game as well. I mean, what a deal. I mean, for me at least, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then when I saw the 99, I'm one of those nerds that bought the ultimate version. Yes, you can yell at me all you want, but I was expecting a whole lot more money being wanted.
Well, no,
See, I'll have to directly disagree with you there, Razz. If you look at the level of content that they've announced, and they've already said that they're not announcing anything else major. I mean, they might flesh it out a little bit between now and release, but they've announced all of the major features. You compare that to any of the game's competitors that have also released similar expansion packs, you're looking $30 to $40 for massive amounts of content. Much more content than I've seen from Heart of Thorns.
Well,
and to charge $50 for that seems very silly to me.
I mean, what competitors? I mean, I'm just
Okay.
like, I don't know what competitors you're talking about.
So like Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward, $30. It's all new, it has classes. I don't know the details of that one, but it has a whole lot of stuff. The latest WoW expansion was $50, but it is much bigger than the Heart of Thorns. And the previous expansions were about 30, and each of those was, new continents, new races, new classes, all of that.
So,
But this one's they're also
I
relying on people paying the $15 a month.
Oh, see, now, so you can take away the subscription part if you think about all of the content that they generate kind of
Actually-
in between expansions. I think that adds up.
Well, pricing isn't based on content, really. It's industry standards that make the price. So marketing standards is the price thing is completely a different side of the gaming industry than the actual game.
So Razz, I agree with you on that pricing is not based on content necessarily. And I had a discussion with somebody on Reddit who was saying, like, hey, I know that the Guild Wars 1 games this or whatever, but like the time that goes into building these is much higher. But I think that value is based both on price and content. And I think there's a question as to whether people feel like they're getting the same value out of the expansion as they got out of the core game. And that almost certainly is not the case. I think you'd have to be way out there to say that a $50 Heart of Thorns game gives you the same value of content that you got from your $60 Guild Wars 1 purchase.
I could agree with some of that, yeah. I mean, it's definitely... Right now, we don't know a whole lot about Heart of Thorns. We just know, we've seen a few specializations, we've seen guild halls.
And I think that's a great segue.
Things.
I have a question that I wanted to ask. It's actually two questions, and I want these as close to yes or no answers as you're willing to give. So question number one is, based on what we've seen so far, do you feel like Heart of Thorns has earned its $50 price tag? Question number two is, I'll go around and have you guys answer both of them. So have you gotten a price tag based on what you've seen? Has it earned its $50? Question number two is, do you think what we get when it ships will have earned its $50 price tag? And I guess I'll start by saying, from what I've seen right now, no, I don't think it's worth $50. If you had asked me in January or maybe February, the second question, I probably would have said yes. But right now, I also think no. And I hate to say this because I love so much of what they're doing. But right now, no, I don't think that we're going to get the $50 value out of Heart of Thorns. So I guess Charim first.
Okay, I'm going to say no and no, as I think I've made kind of clear. I think that they've already given us the skeleton. They're not going to add any new parts to that skeleton. They're just going to flesh out what they've already shown us. And I think even to the point of extreme optimism, the amount of meat they're going to put on that skeleton does not justify $50.
All right, Kura?
I'm going to say yes and yes. Well, I mean, yes to the first one obviously means yes to the second one. But it's just especially as a PvPer, there's a lot of new content coming out. The meta's definitely going to change. I know that's a big kind of joke at the same time, but like, it will definitely change. There's going to be different things. There's going to be different strategies, which will be really fun to deal with. Stronghold whether it's good or not, I don't really know. We've only had 2 days to play it, so I can't really make a judgment based off of that, especially when no one knows what they're doing on the map, even though people think they do. So it's like, I definitely think the meta will change at an alarming rate, you're right. But no, it'll definitely be worth it for me. And I always compare it to other games, so like non-MMO games, and I just kind of compare the time I'm going to be putting into this game after the $50 purchase, and it's going to be a hell of a lot more than I spend on like even most RPGs. So for me, it's definitely going to be worth it.
So I have a follow-up question because I want to get to Razz without too much of a delay. But the follow-up question is, are you familiar with the things that you actually get with Heart of Thorns versus the things you're going to get anyway? Because you talked about like meta changes and this and new strategies and Stronghold, but those are all going to be available for players who have the core game even once Heart of Thorns comes out. The only things that you'll get new are going to be the elite specializations, which if you want to use them, then that's a big deal, and the Revenant. But you'll still be able to play Stronghold, and you'll still be able to play all of the existing core classes, even once Heart of Thorns comes out.
Okay, well, this is going to get into a little bit long answer, but I mean, I'm going to try and make it short. Where if you want to be playing PvP at a decent level, you're going to have the core, or the new specializations. Like, number one, you don't know what the meta is going to be, so you don't know if you're going to need them or not, but you're just going to need them. Like, especially if your team wants you to do any class swaps or anything. Like, looking at the elite specializations, a lot of their abilities are more powerful or fill in a lot of gaps that the class has. So, like, I'm going to take Chronomancer for an example for Mesmers. It does fill in a lot of gaps that Mesmers have. It'll give you some more defense. With the wind back time, you'll have to play smart with it, but it will give you the defense that you need to survive, especially with everyone's crazy damage, it seems. So you're going to need the specializations to play properly. Yes, you do get Stronghold without it, but I also believe without the expansion, Stronghold would never have happened, and the balance updates would never have happened, at least not with this scale. Because, as we've seen so far from ArenaNet, you just don't get balance updates very often, and they're not very big. They're often just kind of like, Blinding Powder, or Black Powder is now not quite as good as it was before, but it's still usable. So it's like, I don't know. I really do think the expansion was needed for PvP.
So can I interject really quickly there?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Kura, you're saying basically that you consider $50 a good value for a new trait line for each class and one new class. Keep in mind that's $10 less than you would pay for a brand new AAA multiplayer focused game.
Yes, but a lot of new multiplayer focused games are also basically patch updates. So I'm going to take Street Fighter for an example. A lot of the Street Fighter games, and especially when you go from like Street Fighter 4 to Street Fighter Arcade to Street Fighter Ultra, like a lot of them, like basically all that happens is balance updates and a few new characters, and I was more than willing to pay for the $50 for that. Or like, I guess, yeah, it was $50 when each one came out. It's way less now, but I really do think it's worth it.
All right. Well, I did want to have a whole discussion about the meta changes and some of the things they're doing. That's going to be a separate video that I'd love to do soon. In the meantime, Kura, I want to get a short bow ranger build from you because Dem bleeds. But Razz, sorry for the short delay. Your turn.
I'm still here.
Yay!
Okay, so I'll start with the 2 original questions. I'll say for the first one, I am 50-50. So 50, I have seen a lot that pleases me and I'm very satisfied with. The other 50 is more, I'm just holding back and reserving the hype feel. I'm like half hype on both sides. So half hype for all the cool stuff I've already seen. So specializations, Revenant, which I'm probably going to be spending a whole lot of time on, and the guild halls. The other 50 I'm reserving because I'm not too sure what is coming out yet, what we're going to be seeing, because again, we haven't seen the full, as much as when I say, like, you know, they said everything at PAX South, they said everything already, we still really don't know what's coming up. I'm holding back all my reservations for that other half that's coming out. To the second question, I'll say absolutely yes. I believe once everything is fully out there, and I'll be like, yes, I'm finally. It's more of a like I've heard everything now, and now I'm satisfied. I'm ready to play the game. It's more of a I'm already ready to play HOT. I'm just waiting for the opportunity to say that truly, which is why I'm holding that 50% back. And what was the third question? I forgot what the follow-up question was.
Well, I think we were just having a general discussion about it. A quick interjected question, because you said you're ready to play. I've been saying for a little bit now that I don't think it'll be out until probably November. And I've had a lot of people, oh my God, at the downvotes I've been getting on Reddit with people calling me an idiot and blah, blah, blah. It's going to be out in August 28th anniversary. Do you guys still have any hope that it's going to come out in August?
I really... Oh, well, overall, this is just my view on general games. Any game in general, a release date, I really could give two craps about when it comes out. Especially, I'm not assuming that it's gonna it's gonna come out next year. That'd be bad business. I mean, in the whole lines of actual business planning and scheduling, I'm pretty sure they have a good timeline for at least in this year and not past December. I'm not gonna say what I think because I really don't know. I could hope that it's coming out in August. That'd be perfect timing
come on? Can you? It's 2 months and 2 weeks to go. 10 weeks
I said
tops.
Hope. I can hope. I can dream. I can dream.
10 weeks. We've had no announcement of release date and no open betas.
So, well, that's the thing. I guess the real nail in the coffin, it's coming out at some point soon, is when open betas start. Because that's how it usually goes. I mean, and not just talking about Guild Wars, talking about most MMOs, general, when open betas come out, they are getting very close. So I guess that's the real determination or determining factor of when we'll be seeing a release date soon enough. And with pre-release, you can only assume that with pre-release, we can assume that maybe open betas are a lot sooner than we think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that we start to get those soon. For reference, and I haven't looked this up, but I believe that with the original game, they announced pre-purchase about 5 months before the game came out. And then they started doing open betas maybe a month or so after that. And then I think it was after the second open beta, I could be wrong about that, but around then, about 3 months before the game came out, that they announced a release date. So if we're going by that schedule, then we'd say November release, so 5 months from now, and we'll hear about a release date in about 2 months.
So just for reference, I have the wiki open to that. 1 second, just backed off of it. Okay. So ArenaNet, with release of Guild Wars 2, they announced the first open beta starting at the end of April 2012, and the game was released at the end of August. So, 5 months.
4 months?
Oh,
4 months.
4 months, yeah, 4 months.
Well, there you go. Maybe they're following the same schedule, so maybe 4 months.
Well, 4 months from the open beta, which we haven't heard about yet.
Which we haven't heard about yet.
What really kind of worries me is that they've announced pre-purchase before even having any open betas. They wanted to get some kind of recognition, something happening with E3, obviously, to keep things going, because it's been 6 months since they announced the thing. It worries me that they're taking so long and that they haven't even started the open beta process yet. So I'm thinking they'll probably try to go for a holiday season release, but I'm worried that they'll rush to try to push it out for that.
I think that oh man, my train of thought was there. With all the pre-release announcements, I think that they have. I mean, it wouldn't be very good scheduling or planning to make a pre-release and not have open betas planned in accordance with development. So what they probably have is some sort of like development schedule, and they'll say once we have this finished or to a good point, we'll start an open beta. Because an open beta is a big deal because not only are you stressing like all the systems, you're stressing all the servers that are going to be working for all this. So that is also a factor that has to be placed into that.
So
Yeah, and I totally agree that I'm sure they have it planned, but there is a big deal and a big difference between planning something and announcing something.
So
When they
I
start
feel
to
like-
announce them is when they'll be getting ready for imminent release.
I do feel like the open beta is going to be at least fairly soon because, like, with their especially just looking at their trait changes and stuff like that. And I remember Grouch saying that like all the traits are fairly close to being finalized. Like basically a few more changes and then they're locked in. And like basically the last trait things they showed were basically locked in. So I do feel like it's going to be fairly soon for open betas. I feel like it'd also be about 4 months after the open beta because they like to take their time on fixing things because they have limited number of people. I like to say take their time, but they actually do work hard. But I feel like it's going to be out fairly soon. I don't feel like August release would happen. I feel like that'd be really fast, but I think maybe November is a bit long.
Well, but so let's talk about that because we know there's not an open beta like this weekend, right? And they normally try to do the open betas on weekends, right? Beta weekend event. It's obviously not going to be this weekend. If they were planning it for next weekend, I would have to imagine they'd know, and Colin would have announced that as well. And by the way, I bet that would have increased their purchase rate on the first night substantially, right? If they were saying like, hey, there's an open beta next weekend. If you buy it now, you can get into that open beta. So we have to assume it's not this weekend or next weekend. So the earliest it could be would be the weekend of the 4th of July. For you guys who are listening
here.
For you guys who are listening who are not American, big holiday for us. There's no chance in hell they're going to try and run an open beta on the weekend of the 4th of July.
I think everyone takes off then.
Right, everyone takes off work, and that includes the workers at ArenaNet. They're not gonna make those guys work over the weekend on an open beta.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I agree.
So the earliest weekend they could possibly have it, based on what I would think is pretty solid logic, is July 11th. And
If you say 4 months from then, you're already halfway through October.
November. Karam, you're bad with months.
Yeah, apparently. I was mentally subtracting one from when I overestimated before.
Don't ask me to do math.
I'm good at math,
Oh,
as
'cause math is
that
my
poor
job.
guy
Okay,
saw on
I'm good
Reddit.
at. Hey, I'm good at math. I'm in calculus.
No,
But
Razz,
I-
you're good at letters.
Ah, shut up.
You
But-
don't work with numbers anymore. You just work with
Work
letters.
with letters.
But so guys, I
A, B,
mean,
C, D.
is any part of that a weak argument, right? If now we do have the assumption that it's 4 months after the first open beta, but let's say it's only 3, you're still mid-October before the game comes out at the earliest.
Well, I can get behind something like that.
And I think a lot of people are not ready for that. I've seen this just from the $50 thing. You know, again, I hate to use
I'd like to-
conversations. Go ahead.
I'd like to interject. So we kind of got off topic of the $50 thing, which is what we were originally starting all this conversation. I think we can like meld it into this one. So I agree with what you were about to say before I rudely interrupted. As you're about to say, as we've seen with how people react to certain things, news such as, oh, the open beta is at this point and we won't be releasing till this point, and it's not what everyone wants because everyone expects things to be out as fast as possible. It can lead to the apocalypse, as someone put very eloquently on Twitter.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't know if you do a lot of flying, but I do. And airlines do this terrible thing when your flight's getting delayed. They delay you by like 20 minutes. And you go, oh, that's not that bad. And then 10 minutes go by and they delay you by another 10 minutes. And then 10 more minutes and they delay you another 10 minutes. And they just keep pushing it back. And it feels worse and worse. It feels worse than if they were just like, look, it's going to be an hour and a half late. You know, we got to wait an hour and a half. It's that process of being like, okay, maybe it's, oh no, it's not. Oh no, it's not. Oh no, it's not. And I'm worried they're setting up their player base to months of constant disappointment by not just coming out and saying, look, we see a lot of people talking about, hey, this is coming out in August. We don't think it's going to be that early. You know, we still got a fair bit amount of work left on it. We're not announcing a release date, but, you know, it's going to take a little longer than a lot of you guys are thinking.
Well, I think this is a problem with, I don't think it's a problem. It's a mistake on the community's part, because this is just ArenaNet's, like, philosophy with everything. Their transparency isn't the best. And so I guess what this is what I've seen, they've gone and decided, we're not going to say anything about release date. And that's what that's been true. They haven't said anything in specific, like, this is on this date in the future, like a month from now. They've always said dates, like, of things in weeks. So this week we're doing an open beta. We did it. And then nothing after that. And so it's not really them doing this, like, airline effect. It's the community making the airline effect on themselves. So they make these assumptions about how, oh man, there's an open beta, it must be close to finishing, or guild halls, it must be done to finishing, or what was it, a month ago, they had, like, all these Twitter posts of people in the voice acting. Everyone said, oh, voice acting is, like, the last thing you do, so it must be out soon. So I mean, people are setting themselves up for failure, which is what humans do. But I mean, it's not. I'm just trying to say it's not ANET's fault that happens.
Well, it's not ANET's fault that it happens, but it is ANET's fault that it's not being addressed or corrected. They could say something.
True, but then what if they did say something, and then something happened, and then it had to change it? Then you do have that all over again.
If they had to move the release up? I mean, I'm saying they should calm people down about when the release is coming. Because, look, I did this too. When they announced it in January, I was like, I bet it's going to be like July or August. But, ooh, it'd be so exciting if it were sooner. And then as I started to see, especially when I did the stress test, when I did that stress test, I was like, nope, this is not anywhere near close. And, you know, seeing the shitty portal farming bullshit open beta nonsense that they did.
You know how you feel about it, Loki. Calm down. Calm down, Loki.
Seeing people play that and seeing how they opened up a little bit more of the map, but, like, it's still just, it doesn't feel like it's there.
Yeah, I can understand how that would be. Like, you go in there and you're like, man, there's not a lot here. But, I mean, this is complete and utter 100% optimism coming out, and I apologize, but I mean, think about this. This is the other side of the coin, you might say. What if instead of it not being that they are, like, they're behind schedule or they don't have a lot ready, what if it's just them being what they usually are and just entirely non-transparent with anything that they're doing? Like, we know that this stuff is coming, but they're just not transparent about what's inside of it.
When was the last time they did that, though, and we liked the result? So, do you guys remember, and I hate to always, like, bring up old things, but do you guys remember the commander tag thing where they were like, oh, hey, you're getting colored commander tags. Oh, and it's 300 gold, and that's per color.
Yep.
I feel like a lot of times, and this has been kind of a consistent thing that I've noticed lately, I feel like a lot of times it feels like they don't get it. And then the more we find out, the worse it feels. Is that just me?
No, I agree 100%.
I would have to be disagreeing, but that's just me. Because, well, also I have to say it's kind of biased because I already had a commander tag when they released that.
Oh, I did too.
Like, oh.
I had it on 2 characters.
I thought it was just bought it once and you got all of the colors.
Well, they did after the community flipped the fuck out over it. So it was originally going to be there's 4 colors, and you had to buy each one individually, so it was going to be 1,200 gold to get all of them. And then people flipped out, and these two guys from ArenaNet stayed over the weekend and worked their ass off to change it so that it was you unlock all the colors. But they acted like they were shocked when people responded that way.
It's like the same thing you were saying kind of with ArenaNet employees on Twitter today. You know, they're shocked that people are reacting the way that they're reacting. I think they don't get it.
Yeah, so I haven't mentioned that on the stream, but I follow a lot of the ArenaNet guys on Twitter, and they seem dejected and heartbroken. And I feel terrible for them because, honestly, every single interaction I've had with an ArenaNet employee has been wonderful. I've tweeted at them, they respond, they're super friendly. I have had nothing but great experiences with them, and I love the content that they put in game. Like,
they're also very excited about everything. Like, I was Ruby makes me so happy when I see her stuff on Twitter. She was saying today, like, she was in an interview before she went on vacation. She said, "Oh, the guy was asking me, is there anything else, Ruby?" And she's like, "No," but in my mind I was like, "Yes, there's more." I was like, #Ruby hype.
And they're so excited, and like they're seeing how they responded to the community response. Honestly, like, it bummed me out so much because I love the stuff that these guys do. But how is this a surprise to them? Like, I work for a software company, and I know there's releases where we release features and they're not quite what they should be. And that's just the reality of building software, right? Sometimes you got to release something and it's not perfect. But I always know it. If I see something and I'm like, this isn't quite there. Like, we release it and then people are a little upset about it, and I get it because I noticed it ahead of time. They just don't seem to have a good finger on the pulse of the community. I don't know.
I think that might have to do, and I don't know, it might have to do with I can't give an answer to that because I see them interacting on the forums. Maybe it isn't because I don't think it's blowing up as much on the forums as it is on other forms of
You mean the
media.
pre-release stuff? Because I've got, let me refresh here. There are over 3,000 posts in the HOT price feedback plus base game included thread. It's
because they all play Barebows.
It's over 3,000. Yeah, a lot of them do play like full signet Barebow. That is always this. But okay, so I want to talk about that for a second because people always complain that they see ArenaNet employees and they're playing some bad build, or they so-and-so who does this doesn't even play that much PvP. I'm okay with that because guess what? ArenaNet has 300 people. I don't give a shit that the artist who comes up with armor skins isn't great at Guild Wars 2. Like, that doesn't matter to me.
Heck,
Okay, I've
I
got
was an
input
artist.
on this one, actually, because I see this a lot, especially to do with PvP. You can't be a top PvPer and be working that hard on other projects. Like, most of the top PvPers, like, play Guild Wars probably 8 hours a day or more. Maybe a few that do it less, probably because they're playing NG, haha.
Radioactive. Radioactive.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's like people expect them to somehow be like gods at the game, and that's just not going to be possible with the amount of time they actually have to play it. I feel like, especially with like poor art designers and stuff, when people are like, "Oh, she's keyboard turning," it's like, who cares? Like, she can play the game however she wants to play it. But like, there are like Grouch is actually really quite good. Like, he's a solid player, and people don't seem to recognize that, and he does help with the PvP balance. And they've also got the tournaments running all the time, so they can see what the top players are doing. They don't actually have to play it. Like, they don't have to play it at that level to see what top players are doing. They've got all that information readily available. Sure, they sometimes make, like, random-ass balance changes that feel like they're throwing a dart at a dartboard and, like, hits a random skill, and they go, "We're nerfing that." But I don't know, I just don't get the argument that it's like, oh, well, they can't balance if they don't play it at a high level, because, like, most of the people saying that aren't playing at a high level.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, I say that entirely tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. No, I knew that, but I felt like it was something worth addressing because that complaint drives me absolutely bonkers. And I think it comes with the overall, like, there's this problem that people who have never worked in a corporate environment have, in that they don't understand the division of roles and labor. So, like, I have a particular job that I do, and there are things that my company does that are not my job, and I have no responsibility over them, and I have no control over it. So if people bitch at me because this or that, and it's not my job, there's nothing I can do, even if I agree with you. Like, I can suggest it to them, and I do that all the time. Yeah. Hey, you want this particular thing? That's a great idea. I've wanted it for 5 years, and nobody's listening to me. Like, that happens. And I feel like until you've worked in a corporate environment, and ideally in a software development environment, you just don't get how that works. And it's very frustrating as somebody who's dealt with it before.
It's
So
frustrating. Sorry.
Okay, so just really quick, in a shockingly positive comment from me, I think it's fantastic to see ArenaNet developers actually playing the game. It shows that they care about it and they like it. And their attitude seems to come across that way. I just think that they don't have their finger on the pulse of their player base.
I think it's mostly that they don't have a pulse on the one particular, like, a few sides of the player base. Because if you think about it, if you look at all the different forum posts, you look at Reddit, and you look at even Twitter sometimes, you see that there's a lot of different type of people who play this game. And I mean, it's usually very, like, zeros and ones kind of, oh, they're this way or they're that way or this or that. Like with League of Legends, I used to play League of Legends, you saw a very concrete line between these types of players and these types of players. Yeah, you had like a small portion that was like in the middle, but with the Guild Wars 2, it's like there's like a whole lot of different personalities and like playing styles. I hate to say that word because I hate that word, but playing styles in this game. And so I think they've made, and I feel very sorry for ANET in this sense, and I say this a lot. They make their own problems with the community a lot because they have this game that's very different in a sense from most traditional MMOs. They make these challenges for themselves, and I actually commend them in a way as well because they are like very like going forward with this still. They're working very hard to make it something awesome.
So I wanted to link you something because you kind of mentioned Reddit. Currently, the most popular post on Reddit of all time, of the Guild Wars 2 subreddit, is "Don't pre-purchase Heart of Thorns."
Don't pre-purchase. Oh my god.
That is the most upvoted post of all time on the Guild Wars 2 subreddit.
Okay, I've got
okay,
kind of a view on pre-purchases in general.
Can I
always... Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing, and this has to do with this, and this is the one thing I wanted to get across today because I did. If anyone has watched Wooden Potatoes today, because he did do a video today about this particular issue, this number of people, and I'm fully in agreement with them. This number of people saying this is mainly people who think that they are entitled to more because they've been playing the game for a lot longer than the new players who are coming into the game and buying Heart of Thorns and the core game at the same time. There's another smaller majority that is saying, oh, it's a bit more expensive than we'd like to pay, and there's another, so there's a lot of different things, but I believe the main chunk of this apocalypse, as you would say, of these players being very angry is veterans mainly, who are upset that they don't get something special for not being special.
So that's a pretty big statement, and Potatoes had a lot of great things to say, a lot of which I agreed with, but I'm not planning on pre-purchasing it right now. I might eventually. But why would I? So just in the interest of full disclosure, being a guild leader and somebody who plays this game a lot and plays with his girlfriend, and feeling like I need the content to, be able to do things with the guild and for the YouTube channel. Even if I'm not at all excited about it, I will be buying 2 copies of Heart of Thorns. Like, just flat out. If this game had 0 content at all, 0 new maps, and just maybe the elite specializations or whatever, I would still probably be buying it. Now, I'm lucky because I make enough money and have enough disposable income that this is not a big deal for me. And in fact, I'm probably going to buy 2 copies of Ultimate because it really is the only package that's worth it in my mind. The rest are garbage. And I do want to talk about the packages in a moment. But so, like, I'm definitely buying 2 copies, probably 2 copies of Ultimate. But there is absolutely nothing that I've seen so far that says I should pre-purchase the game, right? Other than open betas, but they haven't announced those yet. So why would I pre-purchase now?
I can understand that. The main reason, actually, I want to reiterate when I said people who think they're special, not special. I mean, like, they are only not special in the sense that they've been playing the game for a lot longer, and that ArenaNet is gearing their game towards new players, and that they want more money because they need it. And why would you not do that in business? But anyway, the reason that I bought Ultimate Edition pre-purchase like a nerd, one, because I'm slightly fanboyish and I like to support I mean I'd be supporting the game either way if I waited or didn't, but I know I feel very important when I pre-purchase, like, oh, I'm a pre-purchaser, oh, I'm so special. Yeah. But the other reason is, I mean, it's a personal thing for me. I'd like to try out the Revenant. That's just something I want to do. I could care. I mean, not that I don't care about what's coming
but
up.
hang on. These are all reasons to purchase the game. Why would you pre-purchase the game?
So well, for me as a PvPer, I'd like to get at least a handle. Like, I want to be able to at least get a handle on it and see what it's like before I even decide to spend time, like spending my knowledge tomes on it or spending my time trying to get good at it.
So open betas.
Yeah. So,
Kara, any reasons to pre-purchase?
So short answer is no. And so moving a little bit on from pre-purchasing to purchasing. Before this, I'm kind of in a similar situation as you. It's not a financial hardship, and I was thinking, regardless, I'll probably buy it just for the social aspect. But to be honest, yesterday and today have kind of made me angry to the point of me wanting not to buy it. And I mean, just as a way of saying to ArenaNet that I don't like the strategy, I don't think that it's worth the value for the money, and I don't particularly care to support them in furthering that objective.
So I get the feeling that you're like me, that if they turned around next month and said, hey, we're adding 30 new levels of fractals, and instead of 5 people, they're going to be 8 people, and it's going to be a lot harder. It's not just instabilities, but there's going to be all these new mechanics, and there's 5 new fractals, and we're also going to be adding 2 new dungeons with, 3 paths each, all explorable, no story, just explorable. But I feel like I would immediately pre-purchase the game.
Yeah. So as far as purchasing versus pre-purchasing, for me, it's more a question of, do I buy it or not? And if they came out and announced a whole bunch of new features that sounded cool and made me think it was justified in its price range, and then I'd be perfectly happy to pre-purchase it. But for now, I don't think that is the case, and I don't expect it to be the case.
We talked a little bit before. We had a MEGAtalks where I had laid out the concept of systems versus content. And this was maybe a month ago, a little longer, but I was very worried that ArenaNet was focusing too heavily on systems and not enough on content for the game. Does that feel real to you guys at this point?
So for me, it does. And even taking it a little bit further, it feels like they're spending way too much time on specialized niche systems that may or may not have broader applicability to the rest of the game.
Okay, a
So
little more
it would be one
detail.
thing if they were building kind of like, complete ground up systems. So I guess Mastery is a good example of that, a ground up system that'll have application later on. But then this big deal they've made out of the one Mastery of gliding feels to me like a very niche role in a very small portion of the map that will never have application beyond that.
And well, they've
But
almost
that's one of their
literally
major
said
selling
that, right?
points.
They've said that gliding is something you can only do in the heart of Meguma.
Well, I know, but the fact that they're making that one of their major selling points makes me very worried that there's going to be a lot of things like that.
So, Kura, I know
I
you're
mean-
a PvPer, and this is dirty PvE stuff. But if
Yeah, though I do spend some time doing PvE. Like, I don't spend time in fractals, but I've done all the personal story. I've done most of the dungeons. Like, I do spend a little bit of time. I know kind of what's going on, but yeah, I'm definitely more of a PvPer. But in terms of, like, what's happening with that, like, I think it's really interesting for PvP, because we've already seen a few new abilities from the Revenant and the Chronomancer, mainly, that, like, really have new technology in it. So like the what was it? The Chronomancer's kind of well that pulls things in is
yeah,
really
gravity
cool.
well.
Like, and that's going to have a lot of combos with other classes. So like say the engineer like mass polymorph
Engiboa.
thing. Yeah, exactly.
Engiboa.
Like you're going to be able to like pull people in. You could even do things like blink and like well and then get your engineer to mass polymorph people in there. So that's going to be really cool. I feel like for PvP it's a better thing than PvE, but I also am pretty excited for like I mean, I did participate in that small, tiny beta test, and the Wyvern was actually really cool. They could have made it a lot more exciting by making it do a lot more damage, but in terms of like actually enjoying the fight, it was a lot more interesting than most of their open world bosses have been so far.
Well, and I think
I mean, we're
PvP is
also
a
in
special
full
case. So, like,
Yes.
in PvE, you want content, you want stuff to do. In PvP, the stuff to do is to kill other people, but
Yeah.
systems make it more interesting. And honestly, I feel like the system that really is needed is a working, functioning, viable, accurate leaderboard.
The leaderboard's interesting. Yes, they do need a functioning leaderboard. They also need to split it in different ways. So like team leaderboard, well, they need to like have a solo queue again. Like they need to put that back in. Like I feel like that's one of the most said things in the PvP forums is other than nerfing thieves, is just like putting a solo queue back in because it's really frustrating even as like a player that's experienced in PvP. Like when you go up with a bunch of random pugs against like a fully formed team, like it makes it a lot harder to win even if they're a lot worse players. So you can have a group of like fairly good players and still lose to kind of a group of whatever players, which is frustrating. The leaderboards are they're more important for the average PvPer. For the teams, it won't matter because they're going to be scrimming anyways, which is actually a real problem right now because the ranked leaderboard doing ranked is a lot worse than doing unranked right now. Unranked, you'll get a lot better matches than if you're doing ranked because none of the teams are playing in ranked.
No.
If they do play, they're playing unranked because it's a lot faster queue times.
It's been really buried because nobody wants to talk about guild halls, but did you guys see the stuff about guild teams?
Yeah.
No.
So, Razz, I'll let you talk about it while I see if I can find a link that has it.
I didn't read up too much on it because I've had other stress in my life. I wasn't really like trying to memorize everything, but from what I know, you actually get to queue up as a guild. And I don't know if it is from your guild hall. I think it's from your guild hall, maybe. But there'll be a separate. So they are splitting up the leaderboards a bit because they'll have a guild leaderboard as well, alongside the other ones that they make, and it's worldwide. So, I'm still, and I think I don't know. They haven't the guild arena thing. I'm not sure if that's part of it. It might just be a fun thing to do with your guild or to invite other guilds, but it might possibly be part of this guild leaderboard as well.
So
kind of calling back to the old guild versus guild and guild versus one.
So they have already said and confirmed that the arena in the guild hall will not be any sort of PvP mode. It will just be an area in the guild hall where you can set stuff up and people can jump in and fight. It's not going to be like an instance or a map or have objectives or score or points or anything.
See, I still think the guild leaderboard is going to be kind of a bunch of, I guess, like, maybe fairly good guilds, maybe ones that are looking to start being competitive, but in terms of the competitive teams playing in them, I don't think you'll see too many, because they're just going to be scrimmaging together. Like, it's a lot faster for them to set up matches. They can do reruns of it. They can practice specific parts of their game. So say someone's having a problem with team fight, they can just like scrim and ask to do a bunch of team fights with other people.
So I actually
they're
think
working on
that
rotations, they can do that as well.
I think the arena is meant for the GVG bros.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And
meant for the
1v1s.
people who do quote unquote GVG, the fuck all you made up game mode that is done in World vs. I don't mean that. Like, guys, do what you want. I don't give a shit. But it is a made up game mode. It's not a real thing. And everybody who's not in your community is sort of laughing that you call it GVG and not blob v blob. Just saying.
Well, we won't be using it for that reason, right? Now.
No, I'll be using it to 1v1 with like PvE stats. It'll be hilarious.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it'll be interesting. But so I think the real design of that is meant to appeal to the GVGers, which I'm going to get so much hate for that. Guys, I'm just teasing. I really don't care. Do what you like. Although it is like really, it's such a toxic thing that's been created. And I think that's the goal is, hey, let's give them an area that's not one shared arena that everybody has to try to fight in. But guess what? Your guild gets its own and you can invite other guilds and you can do that shit in your arena and maybe that'll reduce the toxicity. So I think that's actually the goal of it.
I also think it's for those people who want dueling in the game.
Sure. Yeah. I agree. But the PvP team, let me link you this. I saw a little bit, I think it was maybe on the ZAM article, which I don't have handy. But one of the blog posts on Friday is introducing PvP guild teams. And my suspicion for this is that if you queue up for PvP in your guild hall with a full team, there's a way that it'll give you another full 5-man guild team, and that there will then be a special leaderboard for those matches. So it'll be like a subset of ranked.
Oh yeah, but what I'm saying is top teams don't care about the leaderboard, and they never will. It's going to be, if they put good enough rewards on that leaderboard, is going to be the issue. Like right now, the rewards for getting top leaderboard is whatever. You get some ascended gear that looks exactly the same as the like glorious gear you already get, so nobody tries for it. Yeah, and then like you get like a llama, and it's like, great, that's awesome. But it's going to be really trying to put the reward system. And as much as I hate to say this, and it still was a terrible system, don't get me wrong, like it didn't work out, but it did inspire more PvPers to PvP, which it to a certain point, because then everyone had the Orion gear. But like when they did have the raw gear for the paid tournament tokens, like being the first ones to start getting that gear was really awesome. Like, you're kind of walking around being like, oh yeah, look at my gear, that's really cool, until like everybody got it. But they need something like that kind of gets people queuing and wanting to queue as a team for those leaderboards, because until then people are just going to scrimmage. And maybe it is a good way, like maybe it's a really good way to get up and coming teams to be playing each other. Like, for sure, that'd be awesome. Like, I think right now there's no way for an up and coming team to get in there easily without like a lot of ridiculously hard work and just entering tournaments, having like most of the community just watch you just get shit on by somebody. But like, yeah, maybe it'll help a lot with that. That'd be really cool.
Maybe they need like more PvP specific rewards.
Yeah.
Then that would get, I think, and I hate to say this because I'm all about, everyone getting everything in a different way, but as a PvPer as well, it would be nice to have, rewards that only I can get, because, I mean, it's also easier for me to say that because, I also play PvE, but for someone like Kura, who doesn't play a lot of PvE, he can't get the same amount of stuff that PvEers can get, and so it's just like, it makes I guess that's an issue between all three game modes as well. But I mean, that'd be a start somewhere.
Do you have any worries that increasing the rewards in PvP would bring in more PvEers who are trying to farm?
I have no issue with that. Like
Yeah.
they just become easy kills and it's a good laugh. But like there's no issue with it, and maybe you'll get even more people just thinking, "Oh wow, this is actually quite fun." Like once I actually played a few more games of it, like
Yeah.
once I actually got a bit better at it,
I
this
was
game
one of
makes
those
a lot more
people.
sense. I can actually just dodge that and not take the damage if I don't just like spam my dodge rolls.
But you know
So,
they're
like, there's a
not
lot of
coming
that
into
stuff.
like unranked or ranked, right? What they're doing right now is they're on win trading servers. I know because we have people in the guild who do this, and it just, guys, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but this just makes me so sad. They go in, it's a special server, you join a team, one team wins, and then everybody switches, teams or whatever, and then the other. It's
Oh.
like everybody
See-
lets blue win all the time or whatever.
What confuses me is that that's slower than doing just queuing unranked matches and losing because you're bad.
But it's
Like,
people
it
who
is
don't want to
genuinely
PvP.
faster.
Like it's legit people who are, they're cupcakes. I think, is that the nice term or the mean term?
That's the nice term.
Okay. They're cupcakes who don't want to be in a PvP situation but want the PvP rewards.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's always going to be a bit of that. I still don't understand it because if you're going to be spending time doing nothing, you might as well be spending time doing nothing, like in unranked or something, and earning the rewards faster. I feel like it's just they're really scared of getting absolutely destroyed and realizing that they're not good at the game. But I mean, that's a bit harsh, but it's kind of true.
Well, getting the rewards faster, maybe, but if it's you're trying to get the daily winner and then you have to actually try and I bet a lot of these guys have sub 50% win rate if they actually try, right? So they might have to do 3 matches before they win on a profession, and then they're trying to do 2 different professions so that they can get both of the dailies to advance their track, and then they have to deal with people who are like yelling at them for being PvE noobs who aren't doing anything right.
Well, like, okay, I understand that, and I completely understand that, but like, okay, this is someone. It doesn't make sense when there are people who are like that don't don't PvP as much, don't particularly enjoy it as much, but they still do it. For example, in our guild, I know that Gil and Nola always be PvPing for the dailies, and they invite me sometimes, and we do fine sometimes we don't, and we still enjoy it. It might have to do with more that they don't play with other people. These might be people that are playing by themselves or aren't very social with their guild or aren't very social in general and just don't want to get into, they don't have fun doing it by themselves, which I completely understand, although I'm very much of the person who likes to carry teams, even though I don't, because it's hard to do on a Guardian. But it's just, I don't know. Get with a guild. I even said that in one of my videos. Get friends. Make friends in the game. Jeez.
Though I have to say, I do understand getting the dailies. Like, I just totally forgot about the PvP dailies because I don't focus on getting them. I don't swap classes to get the win on the whatever class is the daily because there's just no real point for me. The achievement points don't give me anything. So, like, I definitely understand trying to get your daily win and maybe going into server just to do that. But it also seems like a very unfun thing to do to get a daily, which you can get dailies elsewhere. But I feel like they need to maybe change their achievement system if they don't want people doing that. If they do, if they're fine with people doing that, then it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. They're just taking up hot join space, which is totally whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think of that.
I'm
It's a
sort
good
of
point.
of two minds. Like, it hurts me in the part of me that cares about fairness. Like, I feel like there's something bad about it's competitive match manipulation. Even if you want to say it's hot join, like, it is supposed to be a competitive match and people are win trading, and like, I don't like that. But at the same time, it kind of reminds me of like what happened with Reddit recently when they banned fat people hate. And like, somebody did a diagram and they were like, okay, here's Reddit, and it had like a bunch of blue dots, and then in the middle there's a little smaller square for fat people hate, and it had like a bunch of little red dots. It's like, this is Reddit with fat people hate. And then the next one was Reddit without fat people hate, and it just had like the little red dots mixed in with all the little blue dots. Like, hey, maybe it's a good idea to have all the shitty, terrible people constrained in this one spot. Like, maybe it's a good idea to have all the people who are trying to farm PvP in win trading hot join matches and not in unranked and ranked. And, you know, for world versus world, maybe it's a good idea to have all the people who want to karma train in Edge of the Myths rather than in world versus world. So maybe the karma train in Edge of the Myths is a good thing, because now they're not in world versus world fucking up the experience for everybody else.
Actually, the karma training OTM gives everyone, like, they get points in there, and that gives us, like, extra supply in our citadels on our main borderlands. Like, I can understand both sides where it's like, man, EOTM is such a really cool map. It actually is really cool looking, and then I would put aside the fact that you can fall off the edge, but it is a really cool map, and it has a lot of cool features that aren't present in the current borderlands. But still, I'm with you there. Like, I wouldn't want karma trainers in my World v Worlds, especially, I mean, we're holding on to tier 2 in Yak's Bend probably by a thread maybe, so it's like we're trying really hard. We don't need karma trainers.
See, but
That
for
was
the
a thing of the past.
for the PvP servers, like, other than getting dailies, the rewards are so slow that I feel like if you stopped people from being able to do that, they just wouldn't join unranked. Like, for the karma training, I'm sure they would still go into World v World, because it's basically the same thing. It's just a bit more structured. But in terms of PvP, I feel like people that don't want to enter unranked or ranked are still not going to, even if you removed that. And actually, I like your point there, because it kind of limits people being able to get into the game. Say they just, like, hit the hot join button, or whatever it's called right now. But
Custom game.
yeah, practice. It's literally called practice. The button is literally called practice.
Practice.
If they hit practice and accidentally go into one of those servers, because there's quite a few of them, like, the percentage of you getting into one of those is actually not too low. Like, that'd be a terrible experience for a new player to just, like, go in and suddenly just see people rigging matches to get, like, dailies and stuff. Like, that'd be awful.
Ow.
That'd be just atrocious for your first playing experience. So then suddenly you feel like you have to hop into unranked, where people know what they're doing. Like, the average player in unranked knows what they're at least meant to be kind of doing on the map. Sure, they're not going to be rotating perfectly, but compared to a brand new player to PvP, they're just, like, miles ahead.
Well, and that's a good point. Like, keeping it so that it's a good experience for new players. That's why they got rid of the Queensdale Champ Train.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was just fucking toxic. Holy shit,
Yeah.
That was the worst. And I feel like farming brings out that side of people. And it's interesting to me how I think they've tried to open up ways for people to farm, but still maybe keep it constrained. And I know, man, we are so far off topic right now, but, like...
Hey, that's
was gonna
Guild
say.
Wars 2 for you. You know, we go in different directions. Bada big, bada boom.
Man, I just want to talk about how much I'm going to hate the upcoming Condi meta, but we're going to save that one for another
Actually,
video.
you mentioning the swap server thing, you know what that reminds me of? I don't know if anyone actually remembers this. Back in Guild Wars 1, Red Resign Day. Does anyone remember Red Resign Day?
No, I think that was after I had quit.
Okay, so, I mean, this is for all the, and this is something extra, but basically there was hero, what was it called? Hero fights, or hero, you basically went to an arena, it was you and your heroes versus another player and their heroes. And on a certain day, there'd be, like, this special thing for, Balthazar tickets or tokens. Oh no, the keys, that was right. Or no, the points to buy the keys. So you would resign, you'd get, like, double points. So if you were red, you would resign and let the other person win, so that they could get their 5,000 or 10,000 points to buy 2 keys or 1 key for the special chests to get awesome loot.
Oh, that's, I mean, I guess there's always going to be rigging for rewards. I don't
But
like
ArenaNet was really quick to get rid of that.
I feel like they just need to, and I think maybe they're doing this in Heart of the Thorns. I keep wanting to call it, like, you know, Heart of the Swarm, because very similar names, but yeah, exactly. But the new player experience needs to be a bit better, because if you're entering this game just, like, cold, if you go into World v World, because that's what you kind of saw in Guild Wars, and that's what you want to do. If you go into, and they advertise it like you can go into it at any level. If you go into that as a level 1, like, you will get shit on. Like, there is no chance of you doing anything in there other than you being a rally bot, and then people get really mad at you for being a rally bot. Like, people will just tell you to, like, leave world versus world. They'll spam message you if you're low level in there. Like, it's a really terrible experience. Like, it's a really, really bad experience. And for PvP, unless you know where to look for builds, they give you, like, some super out-of-date build that you have no idea what you're doing. There's no guide on how to use the original build they give you.
Now,
like,
I want to jump on something you said before you get too far, because so you're on Yak's Bend. I'm on Northern Shiver Peaks, and I have never seen an attitude like that toward new players, up levels, whatever, in World versus World. There is not any of that I've noticed.
It depends what time. Like, if you're on, like, reset night or even the weekends, then you'll get that a lot more than during the weekdays. On weekdays, you won't get that, because nobody cares at that point, apparently. But on reset night and Saturday night, you definitely get that, 100%.
I think that's also, it's a lot less nowadays, because people have realized, well, if we don't have more players, then our server might just, not do that well because we don't have enough people there. Although it still happens, I guess, with select named people who I will not name here. And it's unfortunate that happens. It was a lot more prevalent back in the beginnings of Guild Wars 2, when World v World was still like newer and people were just trying to understand it.
So I think we can't generalize in this because it varies dramatically depending which server you're on.
But still, even disregarding the player hate that I know a lot of people have experienced, but I think that's kind of tier 2 server and tier 1 servers mainly. But even disregarding that, you still go in on a level 1 and get demolished.
It's
constantly.
a bad experience.
Yeah, it's just like a completely bad experience.
I thought
in
they
general.
completely nailed the new player experience. What are you talking about?
All right, so I'm going to interrupt. I want to talk because I know Razz has to leave soon. He's got a guild event that he's running here. I want to talk quick about the different price levels because we have standard, deluxe, and ultimate. And I don't blame them for doing this, but do these levels feel really super price manipulative to anybody else?
Yes.
So, like, let's say I'm a player. I'm playing the game. I want to get hot, and I want to play a Revenant, but I'm using all my character slots, which is usually the case. My choices are I buy standard and a character slot, which is $60. I buy the deluxe, and then I get the mini, the finisher, the guild decoration, and the glider skin. And that costs me an extra $15. And I'm like, oh shit. That doesn't seem like maybe I don't value those at $15, right? And I think that's probably how most players, like, it feels like just a little bit too much. Like, maybe if that were 65, I would go and say, oh, it's only $5 more and I get all this cool extra stuff. Okay, I'll do it for $5, but 15 seems just out of reach. Then I look at Ultimate and I'm like, oh, it's $50 in gems plus the character slot plus that stuff. Now, okay, that makes sense. I feel like they're putting pressure on people hard to prepay for $50 in gems.
Especially since for me, the icing on the cake is when you go to the site, Ultimate is highlighted, 4,000 gems is highlighted, and it says add to cart in big, bold letters down at the bottom. It's like, so they're obviously pushing this. They want you to think it's a great deal and all of that, but it's just...
and I hadn't clicked to the other ones yet, but like Ultimate's gold when you select it and it starts selected. You can click the other ones to select it, and like Deluxe is a silver color and Standard is like a bronze color. So it's like bronze, silver, gold.
It's sleazy marketing at its worst.
It feels bad. It feels manipulative.
Yeah, Arcade did kind of the same thing with their pre-order, where they had the different colors, maybe up to platinum. I can't remember exactly, but like it did. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't affect me too much, but at the same time, I do agree. Where it's just kind of like, why? I mean, I don't feel like it influences people. Just the color of it. Maybe it does.
I think you have to understand, like marketing people are like. They have a it's a whole like like there's a lot of things that go into marketing. You know, you have psychologists, you have marketing psychologists, you have all these other people just trying to like, oh, how can we make people buy this much more expensive version of the game? And that's always how it's been done.
So I get
I mean
that.
with the what was it when Guild Wars 2 came out? You had the box for like the big collector's edition. I mean, anything you
Yeah.
put collector's edition on, someone's going to buy. For example,
So
like Borderlands 2 Game of the Year edition. I saw that today on sale, like boom, buying it because it's Game of the Year edition. I didn't even look at all the DLC that came with that. I just bought it because it's a Game of the Year edition.
yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the Guild Wars 2 collector's edition because I was actually going to make that point. So that one, so yeah, okay, general marketing strategy, all right, I can't fault them for that. But with the Guild Wars 2 collector's edition, I think it was what, $150, but you got this, hardbox copy with all of this artwork and the Ritlock figurine or whatever it was, all that kind of stuff. This is entirely digital, and not only that, but the only difference between the deluxe and the ultimate is something that has no value anywhere except in their gem store.
Well, I don't even think
not
it's
even
the
cosmetic
deluxe to
value.
ultimate comparison that bothers me. Honestly, it's the standard to ultimate because basically what it feels like is if you buy $50 worth of gems along with the game, we're going to give you a character slot, a Ritlock, a finisher, a guild hall decoration, and a glider skin. Right? If you pre-buy a shit ton of gems, get all this free stuff, as opposed to the deluxe, which is like, oh hey, you want this stuff, it's going to cost $15. And it's just it's the fact that the difference between standard and ultimate is $50 and the gem value is $50. It feels like they wanted to make that math so easy. Oh, if
Yeah.
I spend $50 more, I get $50 in gems and all this stuff for free. And like that doesn't bother me because I'm going to buy the ultimate anyway because guess what? I buy gems with cash anyway. So yes, it makes sense for me. I'm going to buy $50 of gems and I'm going to get a character slot, a Ritlock, a finisher, a guild decoration, and a glider skin for free. Like that does make sense. But I feel like for people who just maybe want the character slot, it's pushing them to spend a lot of money to get those little extras. And I know that they need to do that, but it feels sleazy.
Yeah, I think for me it's the inclusion of the gems that just like pushes it over the edge. I mean, I can understand having 3 different tiers of it, and for ultimate you get something more than you get for deluxe, and it's expensive. Okay, that's fine. There are people that are into that. But I mean, the fact that it's the just like you said, the $50 in gems reduces it to the standard price, makes you feel like you're being cheap by getting the standard. You're getting ripped off by getting the deluxe. So you might as well just get the ultimate because that's really the only logical choice there.
It doesn't feel like you're getting a bonus for buying a higher edition. It feels like you have 2 bad options and 1 okay option.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of an error not to put the extra character slot in. I feel like people would be a lot happier if they had that in, and it's something they could still put in. Like, that's something they could still easily put in, and everyone that already pre-ordered the game would be like, oh, cool, sweet. Like, even less regret for doing it. And for, like, people that were thinking of pre-ordering it, maybe they'll pre-order it, but there definitely wouldn't be, or I don't want to say definitely, that's a bold-ass statement, but, like, I don't think there'd be quite as much hate. It's just, it makes sense. You're putting in a new class. Here's a new character slot to put that class in, so you don't have to decide between paying for a character slot or deleting a character.
do you think
That's
there
never
would
fun.
be
See-
a lot less anger if it were $50 with a character slot overall for the other folks, Karam, Razz?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So I think there would be in general. I don't think it would make much of a difference for me.
That's
So
fair.
So
fair.
one thing that kind of bothers me that I haven't really addressed here is, so if you were to buy original Guild Wars, yesterday at 6 o'clock, an hour before they announced this, you would have paid $40 for it. So now with Heart of Thorns, buying the standard version is Guild Wars the full game plus the expansion for $50. So that to me says that at the current market value, they value their expansion at $20.
So I don't necessarily think that that's true, but what I do think is that when they came up with this pricing structure, which they, I hope, came up with before this week, I think they should have permanently reduced the price of the game and said, like, Guild Wars 2, now $10 for good, right?
Yeah.
And if the game were $10 and then they announced this and they said, okay, it's $50 and you get Heart of Thorns plus the core game for $50, or if you already own the core game, you get Heart of Thorns plus a character slot for $50. I don't think anybody would complain because they'd do the mental math and they'd say the expansion is $40, but it comes bundled with a character slot and there's nothing I can do about it. I think giving them the choice would be better, $40 or $50, and you just buy the character slot and maybe you get like the glider skin, but not the whole package or something. But anyway, I think it feels really shitty that they did go from a $40 base game, which was often on sale for $20 or $10 anyway, but they did move that. And I know they've said they're going to do like refunds or whatever for people who recently bought it, which is good, but that doesn't change the way that it feels.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing refunds for what?
If people recently bought Guild Wars 2 for like $40, they're going to let them refund it and buy the standard edition, so they get Heart of Thorns plus the game for $50.
Gotcha.
That's good, at least
That's
they're doing
good, at
that. But
And
yeah, I
that's
agree with
great,
you.
but like, how the fuck did they not think about this? Like, that's something retailers have to think about, and when you do price changes, you think about that. Like, we're selling our game for $40, and then tomorrow it's going to be $50 with the expansion. How do they not prepare better for that, or have that as part of the announcement? Like, and look, we know we're announcing this today. If you bought the game in the last 30 days, we're going to give you a refund and you're going to be able to buy. Like, why would
You
they...
also have to think about this. It's not exactly... So, you have to remember they're selling it in multiple countries as well.
Yeah, but it could have been part of the FAQ, right? They didn't have
And
to like
so-
say it, but they could have said, if you bought the game recently, we have a plan. You know, we understand people are getting, we're giving people a really good deal on the expansion, and we want to make sure that if you bought the game recently, you get in on part of that. So if you purchase in the last 30 days, save your receipt. We're gonna have a plan up soon for how you can buy the new thing at a discounted rate, like something like that.
So for me, it feels like so they're not offering the expansion just by itself. So that to me, it might just be my personal feeling, but it feels like they know that their expansion is not worth $50. So they're going to throw in these kind of giveaway things that don't cost them anything more to try to up the feel of the value of what you're getting.
I have a very hard time believing that based upon all of the the excitement of everyone over there.
Yeah, I actually disagree with that as well.
I have to
disagree.
heavily disagree with that. It's just like they are
Okay,
so excited. Like,
And again,
every day,
you can't
Ruby Bear is
generalize the
all
roles
caps.
here. So I mean, the artists and the developers are, of course, they're going to be excited about their product. They spent years making it, and they're going to feel great about it. And then the corporate side of it, the marketing and the sales, is very different.
I think they thought it would be a convenient shortcut. Guess what? We've got this game. We want to sell it. Our base game, we're practically giving it away all the time anyway. So let's just literally give it away. But I don't think they thought through the impression. Again, if they had permanently dropped the price to $10 for 30 days before making this announcement, and then they did the pre-purchase, then it would feel like, okay, they were selling it for $10 anyway, now they're just giving it away. And I don't think it would have the same impression on people.
Yeah.
So maybe in general, my impression, just from the amount of content that I've seen, and comparing it to the amount of content I see in other similar style games with expansions and their price models, and my past history with that, it feels like they're not confident in the amount of content they have, and so they have to kind of buffer it.
So let's do a fun question. Based on what we know so far, what should the price of the expansion be? And I'm gonna go last in this, and then we'll end it. We'll do a quick discussion and end it because I know Razz has got to go. So Charim, what should Heart of Thorns cost?
I would say $20.
Kura.
Ideally, an expansion would kind of be like
Not
20 to
ideally. What
40.
should this expansion, based on what we know?
40. I think. Yeah, I'd say 40. I'd say 40.
Razz?
I'd have to go with 40 as well.
I was
Just
gonna say 30. I could see 40, but I was gonna say 30.
Just because that's generally from. And it's not because of it's not, and I'm putting that as not content wise. I'm just kind of like general normal. Like when you think of expansion, you think I'm gonna be spending a little bit less than the bigger game.
Yeah, 40 with a character slot, and I'd be there.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it doesn't feel like an expansion to me. It feels like a DLC.
Yeah, I'm honestly not going to argue with that too much. There's a lot of features and systems, but a lot of those are coming before the game anyway. And I think that's part of the problem that they have, is that they're releasing so much ahead of time that by the time Heart of Thorns ships, half of what should be considered part of the expansion will have already had it for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, that's
this is the thing.
interesting actually. But like, I do think it's gonna make for a better product, just because with them really, especially with the trades, like them releasing it before, they've got a lot more time to balance it with a lot more players actually testing it. So, like, it might be terribly imbalanced when they first get released on Tuesday, but hopefully by the time whenever Heart of the Thorns comes out, it'll hopefully be semi-balanced.
Especially with all the new specializations, like you're gonna have all these
Yeah, I
new
think-
things coming in. They want to have that stuff out early so that they. I don't think like they say that these trade changes as they are right now are like the locked in ones. What I think they mean is like locked in for the release of them.
Yeah, that's what
they'll
they mean.
probably be until Heart of Thorns is released. They'll probably be tweaking them as they go. So I think that's an important part that they're preparing for a lot of new things to come in by releasing stuff early, like the trade changes.
Yep. Well, guys, I'm going to call it there. I do want to do another discussion with you guys sometime soon about, I think the topic would be conditions and power creep, because I have a lot to say about it, and I think that ArenaNet is making a very questionable decision about their game. But for now, we're going to have to call it. Thank you guys so much for joining in for MEGAtalks, and thank you for listening. If you made it all the way through this hour and a half or so that we've discussed it, please do leave your comments below. Give us a like if you want to hear more of this sort of thing, and leave your comments. Let us know what you think. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.